Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Torah studies. Now, tonight, a week from tonight, is going to be the holiday of Shavuot, the holiday of the giving of the Torah. And we have the custom, we stay up the whole night on Tuesday night. And the most important thing is on Shavuot, on Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, we are going to have the reading of the Ten Commandments. And the reading of the Ten Commandments, of course, as the Rebbe mentioned many times, we should, Rebbe encourage, we should bring men, women, children, babies, to bring them to shul to hear the Ten Commandments, because what we celebrate is not just that some 3,300 some years ago God gave us the Torah then, but every year the events of what happened then reoccurs. It is a godly revelation when we hear, just like then in Mount Sinai, there were all of the Jewish people, the neshamas, the souls of all the Jewish people were present in the Mount Sinai, even the future generations till the end of times. All were there and experienced the godly experience with hearing the Ten Commandments. So the same thing, obviously in a smaller set, in a smaller way, but this is the same idea. There's a godly revelation when we say the bracha and hear and read the Ten Commandments from the kosher Torah. So make sure to bring everyone to come to shul. Here we're going to have a number of readings. Of course, we have the legendary, both dairy meal that we have, and we're going to have a number of readings at 11:30, at 2 p.m., and 6:30 p.m. And we have in various other places also in Sheepshead Bay. So now, the Torah was given, the Holy Torah, but the books that we have written about the Torah, commentaries, we have hundreds of thousands of books that was written in commentary on the Torah, explaining. We have the written Torah, we have the oral Torah, and in every generation there's more and more explanations to the Torah. And tonight we're going to discuss about the importance of having as many Jewish books as possible. You know, from time to time I get people come over to shul and they say, Rabbi, you know, my grandmother passed away, my grandfather passed away, he left some Jewish books. Can you take it in the synagogue? I said to them, why should I take it? Keep it in your house. Make a Jewish library. Keep them as many as possible, as many Jewish books. So why is it that important? We're going to talk about this. And one thing we don't see common, when you go into a Jewish home, you're going to see big libraries with many books. But what is not common is to see a Torah scroll. The actual Torah scroll, you don't see it in an average Jewish home. You see it in the synagogue. And this is what we wanted to discuss tonight, explain why. Why is this so? Because seemingly, really, if you look into the mitzvah in the Torah, the very last mitzvah of the Torah, it says a commandment that we should write this Torah. There's a commandment, everyone should write this Torah. So we do have that mitzvah. So let's see it inside. Let's begin. Okay. So this is from the very towards the end of the Torah. In Deuteronomy 31:19, the Torah says, "Ve'ato kisvu lachem es ashir hazois ve'lamdu es bnei Yisrael sima b'fiyem." And now, says the Torah, write this song for yourself and teach it to the children of Israel. Place it in their mouths so that this song will be my witness for the children of Israel. What is the Torah talking about? Writing the song. Which song are we talking about? So this song is in the Torah, in that portion of Ha'azinu. There's the song of Ha'azinu. However, the Maimonides explains that when the Torah says write this song, it doesn't talk only about the song that is written there, but it talks about the entire Torah. Why? Because there is a prohibition to write one portion of the Torah separately, on a separate portion. We need to write the entire Torah. So the Torah says write this song, it means write the entire Torah that contains this song. So this is in the Maimonides. It says as follows: it is a positive commandment for every Jewish man to write a Torah scroll for personal use. The passage states, "And now write this song for yourself." This does not refer only to the song, but to the entire Torah, which includes this song. This is inferred from the law that a Torah may not be written in sections. All right? So every Jew is actually obligated to write a scroll for the personal use. And when we're talking about writing this scroll, there is clear details about this mitzvah. The Maimonides lays out, and it says as follows. It says, even if your ancestors left you a Torah scroll, it is a mitzvah to write one yourself. If you write the scroll by hand, it is considered as if you received it on the Mount Sinai. If you don't know how to write a Torah, commission others to write it for you. One who repairs even one letter of the Torah scroll is considered to have written the entire Torah. And that is a specific instructions. The specific instruction, what we need to do, we need to write a Sefer Torah. What about purchasing a Sefer Torah? So the Talmud says that if you purchase a Sefer Torah, while you may fulfill the mitzvah, but it's not really the right way to do it. The Talmud says as follows: Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Abba, taught in the name of Rabbi Gidal, who taught in the name of Rav. Purchasing a complete Torah scroll from the market is like snatching a mitzvah from a market stall. To write a Torah scroll is equivalent to receiving it on the Mount Sinai. So yes, you fulfill the mitzvah, but it's when you purchase a Torah, but it's not the same as you do when you write the actual Torah. As Rashi comments there, he performs a mitzvah, however, writing a scroll is a much greater mitzvah. Okay? Which leads us to the obvious question. Why don't we do it? Why don't we do it? When is the last time you saw people fulfilling the mitzvah to write the Torah? There's all mitzvahs in the Torah. We are obligated to do all mitzvahs. And even great rabbis, great scholars, people don't do that. Yeah, we have from time to time people join together to write a Sefer Torah, and it's a big mitzvah to write because the Torah is holy, and the community writes the Torah. We had in our community a Torah written. People participated and purchased letters in the Torah, and jointly we wrote the Torah and we placed it in the synagogue. But that's not what we're talking about here. Here seems to be that the mitzvah is to write your personal Torah, or to commission someone to write a Torah for you personally. And you should be able to study from it. And that's something that we just don't do. We just don't find it being done. Is this a forgotten mitzvah? And the answer is no, it's not. We are going to understand by learning that what exactly this mitzvah is. It was then, when the time it was given, it was the mitzvah to actually write the Torah. But today, that mitzvah has shifted, and we'll explain why. So let's see. What is interesting, about 1800 years ago, that mitzvah underwent a significant shift. Up until then, there was the written Torah and there was the oral Torah. And the Talmud tells us that the written Torah should not be studied orally, the oral Torah should not be written down. So the written Torah is the 5 books of Moses, then the prophets and so on. The oral Torah, what the teachings, what God gave to Moses orally, that was delivered, was transferred from generation to generation. So for many, many years, they learned all of the commentary about the Torah, they learned it orally. They just repeated again and again in their heads until they had it clear. Why couldn't you then write down the oral Torah? The reason was, there's different commentators give different reasons. Some say it is because really words they put a limit to the depth. When you written words put a limit in a sense. When you have an idea, talk about it. You can discuss it and go and go deep, and you can have people ask questions, you answer, and the idea can develop into much deeper concepts. But when you write it down, so in a way it's limited to whatever the words it was written down. However, there was circumstances that led to our sages to change that rule that you cannot write it down. And the circumstances was because they were afraid. They saw that this is something that it's not going to work because of the circumstances. There was wars, and people didn't study as much. You were afraid that the Torah would be forgotten if it wouldn't be written down. So let's see it inside. Okay, so that's the question. The Torah teachings that are transcribed may not be recited from memory, and teachings that are transmitted orally may not be transcribed, but this was changed because of the danger of the oral tradition being lost to history. Our sages documented it for the first time, and this was done by Rabbi Yehuda. This was towards the end of the Second Temple. And that's when Rabbi Yehuda did this, and the Maimonides explains why. Why did the holy Rabbi Yehuda transcribe the oral tradition rather than leave things as they always were? And the answer is because he observed that the numbers of students was progressively shrinking while the difficulties were progressively increasing, the wicked Roman kingdom was expanding throughout the world and growing increasingly stronger. So Jews were wandering about and relocating to distant locations. He therefore composed a Mishnah, a compilation of Jewish law for all to study, so that it would be not be forgotten. He and his court devoted their lives to teaching the Mishnah to the public. So this had a dramatic effect on the way we study Torah. And when they started to write the Torah, something else changed. They also started to write the actual written law, not just in the scroll, but they were actually written law in books of Chumash. Like today we have the Chumash, where the written law is, the Torah is printed in books. So now, this change, this modification to the mitzvah in writing the Torah, the modification to our study resulted also a modification in the mitzvah. The way we study the Torah now is not just studying the scroll from inside. That's the way it was in the old days. They used to study the scroll from inside and give the commentaries and review the commentaries outside. But now that they study the way Rabbi Yehuda said, we should study everything from inside, we should record everything. So that also changed the mitzvah in the writing the Torah. So he says, this Rabbi Yosef Kara says, today it is a mitzvah to transcribe the 5 books of the Torah as well as the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the commentaries. So while back then there was only the mitzvah to write the Torah. Today, because what time has changed and we had more teachings and we were afraid that things get lost. So we have all these books. So today that mitzvah of writing the Torah includes, says the Bas Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, that includes also the mitzvah to write the books, the Chumash and the Gemara and the commentaries of the Chumash. And in fact today, when we study inside, what do we study? We don't take the Torah scroll to study it. We use the Torah scroll in the synagogue. We read the ritual readings and the holidays and Shabbos and Mondays and Thursdays in the morning prayer. But to actually sit down and study from the Torah, that is not done. We do it from books. So that's the answer. Because Torah study today extends to all different texts, the requirement to write a Torah scroll shifted to those books instead. And this is something where Rabbeinu Asher writes, Rabbeinu Asher ben Yechiel. He was from the 12th century sage. And he writes, the requirements to write a Torah scroll was binding on the early generations, when Torah scrolls were written for the purpose of study. However, today Torah scrolls are placed in the synagogue for congregational chanting. Therefore, the contemporary Jew of means is obligated to transcribe the books of Chumash, Mishnah, Talmud, and their commentaries to study with their children. So we explained, we answered why we don't write. Why don't we have the mitzvah to write the Torah? Why doesn't everyone put individual write the Torah? But however, this raises other questions. We said that the mitzvah shifted to print other books, but that too, we don't find people printing books. You want a book, you go to the bookstore and you get a book. But if there was a mitzvah to write the Torah, and that mitzvah, we said, shifted, instead of writing the Torah in each individual, there is a mitzvah that each individual should write the other books. So shouldn't that be something that we should do? That everyone should hire a private publishing company and print for yourself the books? Isn't that the mitzvah? Torah says to write the books, mitzvah to write the Torah. And so yes, of course, we mentioned that you can purchase in the market, but that is the mitzvah done not as good. It's not the ultimate way to do the mitzvah. So if you want to do the mitzvah in the ultimate way, shouldn't you need to write your own library? So that's a question. Obviously, we don't do that. But the question is why? Another question, which is in a way a stronger question, how can we say that a mitzvah in the Torah is shifted? We know the Torah, the rules of the Torah does not change. And here we say that the mitzvah originally was to write a Torah. And now the mitzvah is not to write a Torah, but to write the books. How could we shift? We need to understand how is that done? How are we able to change a mitzvah? So we'll first answer the second question. And really by understanding the second question, this will give us an understanding for the first question as well. So these are the questions. Why is there no emphasis on transcribing other Torah books? And the second question, how do we have the authority to modify God's explicit commandment? So to understand this, we must understand the first mitzvah, the original mitzvah to write a Torah. In the Torah, where the Torah says that we need to write, the Torah commands us to write the Torah also tells us, Kitvu lachem et hashir hazois velamda et bnei Yisrael sima befiyem, which means, and you should teach them to the children of Israel and put it in their mouth, meaning they put it in their mouth so that they will have the Torah that you wrote. They should have it very clear. So in other words, it's not so much about writing a scroll, but rather doing what it takes to have a scroll from which to study. That is the mitzvah originally in the Torah. So yes, the Torah says, write a Torah, but the Torah goes on to explain why you need to write the Torah. What is the purpose of this? Is to teach the children. It should be clear in their mouths. So that is why it's not that we shift, it's just the circumstances of the purpose of the mitzvah changed. Meaning the purpose remains, but the circumstances, how to fulfill that purpose, that changed. So back then, when everyone was able to understand and receive the oral Torah orally, so the mitzvah was to focus on the written Torah, to write the Torah. Everyone should have that Torah to be able to study. And they would have the mitzvah to study it inside and orally to have all the oral laws. But now that it has changed, And in order to preserve the mitzvah of keeping the Torah, Rabbi Yehuda made sure that we should write down all of the Torah, the oral laws. So the mitzvah has changed that we need to focus now on the books, because to understand the Torah, you need to understand the other books. So you need to have the other books to be able to study from them. We find a similar concept in the mitzvah of writing a mezuzah. Writing a mezuzah, the mitzvah is, the Torah says you should write the mezuzahs, but really, we don't write them our own mezuzah. We purchase them in the store and we place them on the door. And when do we make the bracha on the mezuzah? We don't make the blessing. Every mitzvah you do, you're supposed to make a blessing. You light the Shabbat candles, you make a blessing. You put on tefillin, you make a blessing, thanking Hashem. You put on a mezuzah, you make a blessing. So you don't make the blessing when you write the mezuzah, even though the Torah says write the mezuzah, but we make the blessing when we place the mezuzah at the door. So that is a similar concept. We have the mitzvah to write the Torah, but the real ultimate mitzvah is to have the books to study from them. To study. This is what the Torah says about writing the mezuzah. Inscribe them on the doorpost of your homes and gates. But yet the bracha is not said then. Before affixing the mezuzah to the doorpost, recite the following blessings, says the Maimonides. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you, Lord of God, King of the universe, who had sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to affix the mezuzah. So that is the mitzvah, to affix the mezuzah, not to write. We do not recite the blessing when the mezuzah is written, because the definition of the mitzvah is the act of affixing. And the same thing is with the Sefer Torah. The mitzvah is what? The mitzvah is to write the Torah so we can study from it, so we can understand it. And for that reason, we have two separate mitzvahs. We have the mitzvah to study Torah, and we have a mitzvah to study it from the book. Why is it so important to study from the book? So why is it so important to write it from the book? To study it from the book? So to have a book to studying from the written book, we have a number. We're going to talk about 3 benefits of studying from the written book. Number 1, when you have the written book, it gives you the inspiration. What is this book that you have? This is the book that was written, that was copied from another book, all the way to God, to Moses and the Mount Sinai. And you have this book. And the book is like a testimony. As the Torah says, that this book should be the testimony that we receive the Torah. It is an inspiration. We understand we receive the Torah from the Mount Sinai. And the testimony, when do you have a testimony? When you actually testify. When you open up your mouth and you study the Torah. That is when you study the Torah from inside. This gives us the inspiration. It gives us the testimony that we connect. We testify that this is a book we received from Hashem. Another example, another reason why it is important to have the written book is because when you have a written book, you have it on your shelf. It's not just you got a book from the library and you read it once and you gave it back to the library. You have the book and you put it on your shelf. You put it in your home. You put the book in your home and it's right there in front of you. And when it's in front of you, you study from it. And when you go back and you study again, and you study when you have someone coming over and you have given opportunity to discuss it with someone else. And thereby the learning becomes something so connected. And this is something similar to this. The Sefer Achinuch says, Misharashi mitzvah, the reason for this mitzvah, it is well known that people behave according to what is prepared for them. Therefore, God commanded that every Jew prepare a Torah scroll to have with them so that they can always read from it and need not walk to a neighbor's home to borrow it. The purpose is to learn to fear God, to know Him, and to understand His commandments that are more precious and desirable than an abundance of fine gold. We were each commanded to write a scroll, even if our ancestors left us one. This is so that scrolls proliferate amongst us, so that we can lend them to those who can't afford to purchase them. Another reason is that we each have new scrolls from which to study, lest we grow weary of the ancient scroll our ancestors left us. So that's why the Torah says it's important to have them, and to have the new one, and to keep writing new ones. And here the Rebbe comes and says another thing, another reason why it is important to have the actual written book. Says the Rebbe, having a written book and studying from the written book, it really enlightens us. When you read from the letters, it enlightens you, and it becomes engraved in you. When you study from orally, you listen to a lecture on YouTube, is not the same as you sit down with a book and you learn from the book itself. As the Rebbe, studying from a book is easier and deeper. Letters enlighten. It shields us from error because what we learn from a book is not easily forgotten. One can review it at all times, etc. All this provides for concern that we might forsake our covenant with God. So this is the three reasons we said. Number one is the inspiration. This is the Torah that we received from generation to generation. Number two, we have the constant study, that when we have the book in front of us, we can constantly keep studying it again and again. And number three, that this is the clear grasp. We have clarity in the teachings when we have the book in front of us and study from them. So we understand now two important points. Number one, right now, we have new Torah books that we didn't have all these years. And number two, the purpose of the mitzvah to write a Torah scroll is to study from it until it is clear and sharp in our minds. Now, this is why the change. This is why this answers the question, why today we don't have that mitzvah, we don't do this mitzvah of writing the scroll. Because again, what is the purpose of the mitzvah? Is to have it, to know it. And to know it today is through the learning of the commentaries, the books, the holy books that we have. As the Rosh says, Rabbeinu Asher says, this is because the mitzvah to write the Torah is for the purpose of studying it. As the passage states, teach it to the children of Israel, place it in their mouths. It is through the Talmud and the commentaries that we gain Torah understanding of the commandments
Что
and the
вкусно.
rules. Therefore,
Ты знаешь, что еще
these
в
are
таком
the
салате
books
я люблю, что ты да,
that we are
вареное яйцо
required
тоже.
to transcribe.
Что? Спасибо. Вкусно, спасибо.
Gennady, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, so I muted them. Thank you, Rabbi. Now, however, the question still remains. One question still remains. If we need these books, today's books, to be able to understand the Torah, so the question still remains, why don't we have the mitzvah to write all those books? We understand why we don't have the mitzvah specifically about the Torah, because now we need all the books. Why don't we have a mitzvah to buy? And the answer is, when the Torah gave us the mitzvah to write the Torah, the writing a Torah has a lot of details, has a lot of laws. It is a holy, sacred book. And we're going to read a little bit about the details, what is required to write a book of Torah. So when the studying was from that book, the mitzvah was to write that book. But when the mitzvah shifted, the understanding of the Torah is not just the book, it's the rest, other books. The other books don't have those intricate details like writing a Torah. This, you can take a printer and you print. So that's why the mitzvah is not to print it. The mitzvah is to have it. So we answer the question, how do we have the authority to modify God's explicit command? We said we are allowed to write the oral tradition because nowadays we cannot fulfill the mitzvah of Torah study without it. Because that is the mitzvah, that is the original mitzvah, to know the Torah, to understand the Torah. And we cannot have it without it. That is the way we fulfill it today. We can't know the oral Torah, says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, the meaning of the written text and its rules from studying the Torah scroll. It is not like the early generations when they fulfilled the mitzvah by transcribing the Torah scroll, because the explanations were transmitted orally. Moreover, they were forbidden to transcribe the oral teachings in those days. But why don't we have the mitzvah to write it? Because that's not the same as the Torah. In writing a Torah scroll is so many details. Here's written in writing in the Chabad.org. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to read parts of it because it's very long. And if you want in the video, you can pause it and read it yourself. An authentic Torah scroll is a mind-boggling masterpiece of labor and skills, comprising between 62 and 84 sheets of parchment, cured, tanned, scraped, and prepared according to exacting Torah law specifications, and containing exactly 304,805 letters. The resulting handwritten scroll takes many months to complete. The sheets of parchment are sewn together with sinews to form one long scroll. And we'll go on and on. It goes on and on, all the details. So the scribe may not rely on his memory but must copy the letters word by word from a kosher Torah scroll or a copy of a certified Torah scroll. The Torah scroll, and especially the names of God contained therein, must be written with utmost purity and devotions. It is therefore customary that the scribe immerse himself in a mikveh, in a ritual pool, before beginning his work. He also recites a blessing at the outset of his work, he says, Hashem Kedusha Sefer Torah, and before each time he writes the name of God. So we're talking about the process of writing the Torah, the holiness of the Torah is something that this is there for. If you want to purchase a Torah, you cannot compare it at all. Like when you're sitting and writing the Torah yourself, or at least commissioning someone to write for you, the entire Torah with all these details that we said. But however, when the obligation to write Torah books was modified to include regular Torah books that don't require writing this detail, the requirements to write it did not carry over. So what carried over is the mitzvah to study it and understand it, but the details didn't carry over the writing, because that's not, after all, that's not the Torah scroll. So that's the question was, why is there no emphasis on transcribing other Torah books? Because when the obligation to transcribe the Torah was modified to include other Torah books, so the requirement to write them did not remain. And in the Rebbe's words, the Rebbe says as follows: in the early generations, the commandments and the commandment, and now write for yourself, this commandment, was to write a Torah scroll. This triggered many ancillary requirements, such as writing it with mindfulness, an attendance and scored sheet of parchment, writing the entire book, not just a portion, etc. In other words, the fact that we were writing a Torah scroll added many conditions, obligations, and requirements to the mitzvah. So it added those requirements. It is self-understood that when the mitzvah was modified to include the Torah, the Pentateuch, and Mishnah, Talmud, and their commentaries, the requirements that pertain to writing the Torah scroll did not carry over. We don't need to write these books ourselves. Commission someone to write them for us or repair them. We don't need to do that. These books do not require such writing methods. They don't even require a human to write them. They can be printed by machine, so long as the book is in written form. Even if it was accomplished by a monkey dancing on the keys, okay, it would be an interesting way of printing a book. But even that, the obligation to study it and place it in the mouths can be fulfilled. So that is the mitzvah today, to have it written book, to have the books written, and to study them, to understand them. There is an example of another mitzvah that has shifted, which did not carry over all its details. The example is the prayer. We pray every day. Why do we pray? The prayer, the Talmud tells us, Tefillah is b'makayim karbanos tikna. the prayer was established to replace the daily offerings in the holy temple. Now we don't have a holy temple, so we don't bring the daily offerings. So we have the prayers. We pray, come to shul, and pray. So that we pray in the same time. That's why we pray three times a day. I mean, we have originally 2 times, which is the morning offering, the afternoon offering, and so on. But not every detail was carried on. For example, in the Holy Temple, who was able to lead the services was the Kohen. He had to be a Kohen to lead the services, to bring the offerings. That detail didn't carry over. You don't need a Kohen to lead the services. Yeah, it's okay to have a Kohen, but you don't have to have a Kohen. Anybody can lead the services. So we see that certain things, certain details, that were not, that the mitzvah shifted, so not all the details were shifted. Purchasing a book of Torah today accomplishes what writing a Torah scroll accomplished in the past. It is akin to receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. As the Rebbe said, in the previous generations, this commandment was fulfilled through writing a Torah scroll. When one wrote the Torah scroll, it was like receiving the Torah in its entirety on the Mount Sinai for the first time. This experience inspired one to study the Torah and observe its tradition in its entirety. However, this applies to a degree in all places at all times when we purchase Torah books and study from them. That is the way we do this. That is why it's so important to have, this is one of the Rebbe's campaigns. One of the Rebbe's campaigns was Bayis Molei Sfarim. A Jewish home should be filled with holy books, as much as you can, as many as you can. And don't put it in your private study, put it out in the public, in the living room. Let people come in and let them see that this is a house filled with Jewish books. That's what the Rebbe says. From everything we have learned, we can understand how important it is to encourage every Jew to have Torah books at home, and if possible, a home filled with Torah books. At the very least, every Jew must have the basic Torah text, prayer books, the Tanakh, including the entire biblical canon, the Mishnah, the books of Jewish law, etc. Of course, we have to have the Tanya. Without the Tanya, this is the Chassidus book, of course, important. And we must study them and place them in our mouths. Place them in our mouth. This is what the Torah says. Place them in your mouth. Make sure you study them and you know them very well. And here is written up again an article about this important mitzvah, the campaign of the Rebbe. Again, I'm going to pass it. You can pause and read it if you wish. What the Rebbe said about the importance of having the books. Now, in addition to that, in addition to having the written books, the Rebbe also, of course, encouraged to do the actual mitzvah, to participate in the writing of the Torah scroll, in a mitzvah that unites all Jewish people. The Rebbe started the campaign. It was a campaign first writing a Torah for children under Bar Mitzvah. That was, if I'm not mistaken, in 1981. I may be wrong, but somewhere around that time, to write that each child that is born should purchase for this child and should purchase a letter in the Torah, and that is written as we speak in Jerusalem. They already wrote, forgot how many Torahs that they wrote in Jerusalem, And this is, and in addition to that, a year later, the Rebbe encouraged to write Torahs for adults. And every Jewish adult also should purchase a letter in the Torah. You can scan this barcode and go there to the website to purchase this Torah, letter in the Torah. So, we need to make sure, as we get ready for Shavuot, the holiday of the Torah, God is giving us the Torah. It is the gift that Hashem gives us. And the more books we will have in our homes, will be right there in front of our eyes. We'll be able to study from them. The Rebbe says this fills the entire home, and changes the atmosphere of the home. It brings happiness, it brings good luck, it brings blessings. Hashem help us, we should all be blessed and learn the Torah, study the Torah, purchase a letter in the Torah, and we should be able to see the new Torah coming out from the mouth of Mashiach, very soon. Amen. Thank you all for joining. Any comments or questions?
I have a question, Rabbi Cohen.
Sure, Chloe. Yes, go ahead.
How are you?
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
So you asked the question and I gave the answer.
Yeah. Well, my question is, if someone's beginning to learn, what book would you recommend for them to start with that's maybe not so overwhelming, besides having like Chumash and a Siddur? Like, what would be the first, I guess, thing to get?
Yeah, so you the Chumash, like you said, you have the Chumash, you have the
Siddur.
the Siddur is the good book to study. What is important is important to have also the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is the short version of the Code of Jewish Law.
Okay.
Because there you can actually see what is important to see. The daily, you have covers the basic life. You see whatever you can, what mitzvahs you can do. It covers the life cycle.
Okay.
So that's Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And of course, then you have the Tanya. Of course, we learn the Tanya together. We have other books. And you purchase as you go along. There is books that is written for. There is a book written by Rabbi Simon Jacobson, which is a very good book, Towards a Meaningful Life. Many books like that.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Cohen.
You're very welcome.